chair. James waving, fantastic. We've got James Greenwood, who's going to be presenting a case study. Is James online?
Hi, David, I'm here.
Hi, James, great to know that you're there. And we've got Kate Roffery as well.
Hi, David. Hello.
Hi, hello, Kate. Thank you very much indeed.
No problem.
What I'd like to do is we do hope it's going to be interactive and that you're going to ask questions. When you ask a question, it'd be great if you said hello, let us know who you are and which university you're from. So let me tell you about the format for this session. I'm going to give you some key dates to kick things off, and I'm actually going to read out the 9 different award categories. And then I'm going to invite Jane Donachie, the awards chair, to briefly say why these awards are really important and why you should all put forward an entry. Then we're going to hear a couple of case studies from James and then Kate. Then we're going to talk about how the judging takes place. And we're going to finish off with some top tips for making an entry. And then we're going to finish off with a Q&A. And we've allocated an hour. So first of all, I'm delighted to say that the CUBO Awards go live next Tuesday, the 7th of February. And yeah, Jane's celebrating there. And the closing date, which is really key, is midnight, the 24th of March. And our 9 awards are Campus Experience of the Year, Best Residence Life Experience, Excellence in Sports Experience, Innovation in Student Housing, Creativity in Catering and Retail, Innovation in Student Experience, Creativity in Conferencing, Events and Hospitality, Business Partnership of the Year, and finally, Best Marketing Campaign. So there's 9 categories and 9 awards, which will be presented at Glasgow, at the University of Glasgow at the CUBO Awards dinner on the 6th of July. So without further ado, as we say, I'm going to hand over to Jane, our awards chair, to tell you a little bit more about why the CUBO Awards are so important, and also for Jane to explain her role to everyone at this round table. So Jane.
As David says, thanks David, it is interactive, and I'm hoping that everybody's just not going to sit and listen to what we've got to say. So please take this opportunity to ask any questions you want to ask about what to do, how to do it, what we've done in the past, because otherwise you won't get the most out of the session. You can read all about the awards on the CUBO website. But very briefly, Kirsty spent a lot of time last year and the team reviewing the criteria and redeveloped some of the criteria and changed a number of the awards. But this year we've decided to leave them as they are, to give them another year to see how those applications go throughout this year. We had a meeting, a CUBO board meeting, and I said, you know, it's really frustrating because I was one of the markers last year, one of the judges, and the entries were so different. And it was so obvious people didn't quite know what to write in there, what to leave out, what to add in. And a lot of entries, whilst they had a great initiative in a particular area, hadn't demonstrated it at all. And so for me, I have a lot to say in that area. So you can ask me those questions later if you want to, or contact me after today. The board, we have the role of suggesting judges for both the digital entries as well as the site visits, which we're in the midst of now. Thankfully, we've got Sarah Clayton, who keeps us all on track. Thank you, Sarah. Now, I'm at the University of Arts London, and we placed many awards when James Greenwood was working in my team, and we never won an award, and we got really, really pissed off, quite frankly, that we didn't get through. And so we sat down one day, and James, hopefully James will reiterate what I'm saying, said, you know, what is it that we're not doing? Because we knew that we were doing a great job, and we knew what we were offering our students was fantastic, but we weren't somehow getting it down on paper. And so James will probably talk to you about that process that we went through in order to make sure that our entry was more fitting. And we did win an award, just so you know, we did win an award that following year. So it did work. I think for me, as the Associate Director of Catering, Retail and Accommodation, the awards have, there's lots of reasons why you should apply for the awards or register for the awards. I think it attaches a real importance on commercial services within the HE institutions, which often gets missed. You know, it's all about the academia. Yeah, we know the academia is important, but actually what we do is really important too. And I think that that winning an award, and if you use that narrative internally, it helps you promote the fantastic work that you're doing internally and raise your profiles. It's much easier to raise your profile, isn't it, when you've won an award or you've done something fabulous. I think it professionalizes what we do. You know, people often think, oh yeah, you work in housing. Well, Christ, if they only thought it was that easy. So I think it professionalizes and attaches a professionalism to what we do. And I think that's really important, both internally, but also to your own staff. You know, what we do is important. And here is an organisation, CUBO in this instance, recognising the fact that you're doing a great job for students and your staff and everybody else. It's a great recognition tool for your own staff. You can't, you know, the buzz that you get and the team get when you win an award, even when you enter for the award, is exciting. My view is that it's a really great motivator to your teams, and it's also something for you to take back to your institutions and celebrate with the rest and the wider team who won't be at the CUBO conference but have been involved in the initiative that you've, you know, you put your award in, the award that you've gone for, sorry. It goes without saying that winning awards gives a almost instant feeling of pride and team morale, and makes them feel more valued, the team more valued. And I think after COVID, that's really important, isn't it? Because we saw what COVID did to all of our teams. Everyone just got a bit peed off with the whole thing. And you kind of need to give some of that excitement back, I guess. I think it can boost your organisation's reputations, and don't underestimate that. And from a commercial perspective, you know, if you've made a great initiative in catering and you've got a great new offer, as an example, maybe people in the institution don't even know about it, or the students don't know about it. But actually, if you put an award together and you win an award for said initiative and you market that properly internally, then there's no reason why it can't bring you commercial dividends as well. I mean, it is a bit demotivating when you don't win, but I think that what you need to do is prepare for that and say, you know, it's all about, isn't it? Look, you're still a winner. You got shortlisted. You know, we've done a great job. So, I mean, you need to ensure that if you don't come first, that you still have some celebrations of something that your team has achieved. So for me, and you know, quite a lot removed from some of the entries that my team will make in, but I'll make a big fuss about it even if they enter, never mind if they win. And it's a great, and it, you know, what does it take? I mean, it's hard to motivate our staff in some of these areas, isn't it, really, and recognise what they do, but they all work really hard. So anything you can do that assists in that motivation and staff retention and all those things can only help us. Is that enough, David?
Jane, I think that was fabulous. I mean, you've really sort of focused on the process there of people feeling proud, the kudos, the excitement, the building of morale, and it's also using the entry process as an opportunity to reflect on what great work you're doing as well. And I'm really pleased that you said it's about celebrating by just making an entry as well. If you get shortlisted, brilliant. If you don't, you get something out of that process. And the purpose of this roundtable is to make everyone feel enthusiastic about putting forward a submission. So I think that was great. Would anyone like to ask Jane a question at this stage?
I think Teresa's there looking. She can't find the hands up button.
Oh, right. Teresa. Go on, Teresa. Yes.
Yeah, and I better put my mic on too. Hi.
Hi.
It's probably a really obvious question, but we're new to this. So what is the time period that it covers? So is it, you know, March to March or?
So that is a really good question. It might be that some of your questions today we take away and give you a more detailed answer. But the project might have been several years in the making. It might be a business relationship, for example, which kicked off pre-pandemic and has grown and continued post-pandemic. So I don't think we're specifically saying it's something you've achieved within the last year, but I would suggest that it might be the first time you've really evaluated that and sort of looked at what results you've had as a result of this particular project, because building a campus experience might have taken several years
Yeah.
to build it. It's
Yeah.
not going to have just happened within the last year. Whereas, I don't know, it sort of innovation and creativity, it might be something brand new, fresh out of the box, which is more recent.
Yes.
That is my take on that. Jane, would you like to comment on that?
I think the other thing I would say, David, is that actually anecdotally, you might need a year of results. So if it's the catering entry, in terms of a marketing or the best marketing campaign, you might need to leave it from one academic year to the next to actually ascertain whether it's been a success or not.
Yep.
You know, you don't always get the successes the next day, do we?
No.
And same as David said, really. So I think for some of them, it's the anecdotal evidence of the success, and whether that's commercial or student experience, from a student experience perspective, I think sometimes can be better a wee later. So I don't think it is the year before, because you won't have the anecdotal evidence, I don't think, that quickly. So I would, but we'll clarify that, won't we, David? When we come out after this call, in terms of if there is a time frame. Can't remember there being any time frame in the ones I marked last year.
No.
And in fact, some of the ones I marked last year had only just done the initiative, and we didn't know. You couldn't see if it's a success
What the results?
They have no.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Yeah. So it's going to be
Okay.
it's going to be results based, and you've got to have
Yes.
been able to evaluate what those benefits are. So it is generally going to be, you know, a period of time in the making, not something relatively fresh out of the box.
Okay. So it's led by the project, really.
It's led by the
is it?
project. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Great, thank you.
Thanks for the question as well, Teresa. And I can see that your golden hand was raised now.
Oh yes, I'll unraise it.
There we go. Thank you.
Thanks.
Shall we invite James now to share a previous winner's case study? James, over to you.
You might have oversold it there a little bit, David, but I'll try my best in terms of what we've done. So my name's James. I'm head of residential life at the London School of Economics. But all of what I'm going to talk about is based on my time when I worked at University of the Arts, where I had to put up with Jane Donachie for a whole 11 years, fortunately. So yeah, I'm not going to do any fancy presentation. I thought we'll just have a conversation, if that's all right. And then if there's any questions, then great. When I worked at UIL, we submitted quite a few awards over many years, mainly for Res Life, innovation in student experience, and some comms related things my colleagues also submitted. So they were the main kind of areas where we submitted. We were successful twice in terms of Res Life, and that was a big achievement for the team. And as we've just discussed, that was years of hard work to get to that point. It wasn't we've done something great one year and let's submit the year after. It took many years. And we also submitted other awards that weren't just CUBO. We submitted lots of awards across the whole sector and outside of our sector, actually, as well, in the events world. And we're disheartened a few times, but we kept going back for more, and eventually it was successful. But I think that, I think you've just got to be really clear with what you want and what you want to get out of it, and make sure that your teams that work around you are also aware of what awards you're going for and why you're going for them, and why is it part of your wider vision, so that they're all giving you the right information and facts, etc. for that. So you almost need a purpose, as Jane was saying, to go for those awards, and that could be as simple as just motivating the teams and keeping people happy and keeping that going year on year, or it could be part of a wider strategy. It might be something that you've said in X amount of years that we will be at this level across the sector. But some of the more practical stuff, when I was at UIL, I remember we had an awards dump folder. So if there was anything that we ever did, whether it was a fact, a figure, I don't know, some images, some student feedback, some staff feedback, we'd just whack it in this point folder. And that was just a practical thing, and we've done that so far at LSE too. I've just created that same folder and said to the guys, just drop stuff in there. It might not be significant and it might be never used, but it's all in one place, so that when we do go to submit these awards in March, we're not scrambling together and trying to find bits of information all over the place, it's easy to get to. So that was just, I guess, a practical thing. And it's about being organised. It's about just thinking about what is the achievement and then how did you achieve it, and including as much as you can in terms of data within that submission. Any feedback direct from students is crucial, but data, I guess, supports those arguments. I think in the early days when we submitted some of the award applications for UAL, we weren't quite hot on that data, and it wasn't clear enough what we were doing and how we'd achieved it. Whereas when we resubmitted year on year, we got, I think, a bit better with that data and proving the case. And I guess it's about showing what you've done that stands out. Why is it different? You know, it's all right saying, you know, we want the award for the best Res Life program, but why? What have you done? What's different? What have you innovated in that makes you stand out? Everybody's got marketing campaigns, everybody does it, but what have you done that's different and a bit edgy, maybe a bit more out of the box? Maybe you've looked at the wider sector, which isn't, you know, higher education. You might, I don't know, you might have done it. I'm just throwing out examples for the commercial side, and you might looked at what Premier Inn have done and copied that, but in a different way for higher education, for example. So it's about demonstrating that really, and what makes you different. There's been a lot of discussion about bid writers and whether, you know, it's worth doing that in a formal way with a bid writer, and I think there's pros and cons of doing that. We tested that when I was at UAL, and sometimes it was successful depending on the quality of the person, and sometimes not so much. So I think you just got to think about that, and also think about how genuine the awards submission is going to come across, and I think if that's written by the team or the person that's overseeing that team, it just sounds, I think, a bit more genuine. You might get a comms person to top and tail it to make it sound a bit, you know, a bit more flowy, but just think about whether that's right or not. And as Jane said, don't be disheartened. I remember us going to loads of awards nights, not just CUBO, loads of them, and then sitting there and thinking, for fuck's sake, not another one, we've not won, you know. And then you just pick yourself up and think, right, we'll do it again. We'll give it another go next year or the next 6 months or whatever. But you've got to, I think, submit a few, and it naturally, I think, you know, you won't win the first few, and that's fine. But it will happen eventually, and you won't win year on year either. You know, once we'd won one award and you become whatever you become, the top in terms of Res Life or your campaign or your business partnership, that doesn't mean automatically that you're the best and you'll get it the following year. So I think you've got to be prepared for that as well, that that isn't going to happen. But I genuinely get more excited when smaller institutions win these and have opportunities to win these awards, if I'm quite honest, because for many years, no offence, David, but the University of Sheffield, the University of Edinburgh and others have always won these awards. And I think it'd be very exciting to see if some smaller institutions could get there too. I think that'd be brilliant, actually. So there you go. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, Jane's got her hand raised.
I won't ask you a question and put you on the spot, James. But one of the things I think is important is why to establish why you're doing it in the first place. Why are you doing the new cafe, the new student experience, the new marketing campaign? Why have you done it? So identifying the need within your business,
yeah,
and then developing whatever it is you're developing, and then celebrating in its success. So it needs a start, a middle, and an end. You know, it's all very well as saying, all right, let's put pizzas in one of our sites, but is actually what the students want? No, actually it isn't. So it's not that such a great initiative then, really. So it's identifying the need and how you've got that. Why are you doing it? Is it come from students? Does it come from, you know, I don't know, other universities that are seeing a trend in something particular? So I think it's quite important to ascertain why you've done it, then what you do, and then what are the results of what you do. And you could, if you wanted to be really clever, is say these are some of the things that we're going to add to it in the future. Saying, you know, this is what we've done, but we're actually going to add this, that, and the other, because no one nails it first time, do they? When you open up something new or start, you always make tweaks along the path, and don't be scared of saying that. You know, I think that, so, you know, you kind of need a story, and it needs a beginning and an end. So remember that when you write. Some of them just went on and on and on and on and on. I was like, I can't even remember what we're talking about now.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm faced with a blank piece of paper, I always use the acronym WIN, which is what, interest and need, and the need being the benefits, the business benefits, the wider community benefits,
Yeah.
the general need. Why do we need to do this? But the hook of the interest is always good. So I use the acronym WIN, what, interest and need. More questions for James, please. Any more hands, any more golden hands raised?
James, do you want to talk about the importance of visuals?
Yeah, and some of what I think CUBO you can attach, is it up to 3 visuals and make the most of that.
Well, I just agreed something with Sarah pre round table. It's they're going to change the wording to 3 photographs, but this gives you the opportunity to add infographics and charts to your heart's content.
Yeah.
Whereas some people last year got confused with the terminology of 3 images. So it's going to be 3 photographs, plus you can build into your submission infographics, charts. I'm repeating myself now.
Yeah, I think that's really important though, because it makes the person reading it a bit more interested rather than it because they can go on and you can be saying the same thing over and over. And I think if you can add in some imagery or some infographics, it spices up the application a little bit rather than a piece of black and white paper. So that's really important. But make sure whatever you're submitting is top notch and not grainy, awful images. No one wants to see that.
Well, that's right. In fact, CUBO is saying that your images should be a minimum of 700 kbs and up to 5 MBS in size, and in JPEG format. So that's what they're saying. And if you're unsure about the word count, I can reveal that it is 600 words, 100 words summary followed by 500 words of detail. However, if you enter Campus Experience of the Year, you're allowed up to 1,000 words in that one, but all the others are 600. Okay, shall we move on to Kate? Kate's little case study.
Hi.
Hello, Kate.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yes. I'm looking for you on screen, Kate. Oh, there you are. Yeah, there you are.
Yes, I'm a bit stripy and blurry, so a bit of
Yes.
rubbish webcam, I'm afraid. Hello everyone.
Hello.
I don't have I guess too much more to add to that. So just for context, we've been entering the CUBO Awards since 2017, and we've won before the Excellence in Sports experience because I represent University of Nottingham Sport Department. And for the first time last year, we also entered the Best Marketing campaign, which was a bit of a leap of faith for us because we are a very small section of the marketing department here, and we also were really pleased to win that last year as well. So we had a great evening. For us, the entering these awards has been really important to profile what we do as a sport department to kind of the wider university community outside of sport, both within our own university and in this kind of group of people, because we want to show people that we're not just like a gym that charges people to use the membership, and it's been really important for us in terms of profile. So that's why we invested time in making applications and then being fortunate enough to win, to make sure we spent the time promoting it. The way that we kind of went about it was quite straightforward. There's only really 2 awards that were suitable for us. Fairly straightforward. We're a sport department, and it was a bit of a team effort. So our senior team looked at all the projects that we're working on and decided which ones that they thought were worthy of kind of being entered. And then it was up to the individual program leads to provide all the information. And me being a, I don't know, designated writer, so we speak, you mentioned a bid writer, I guess I kind of do that. It was up to me to write them. Other than what's already been mentioned, the only things I'd kind of add is we really like to add some quotes in from our students that were directly involved in what we did, because we just felt like they could tell it better. And then it just wasn't just me writing it. We also wanted to, from a copywriting perspective, wanted to make it as easy for the judges as possible to see what they needed to see, because we do so much and we could have rambled on for ages, but hopefully we tried to just work criteria by criteria and make it really easy for those people judging the awards to see what they'd asked for. And I think I'm lucky that I do appear on some judging panels myself. So just try to think with my judging hat, how would I just want this to be presented to me? So if anyone's obviously keen to get a bit of help, that's the best thing that for me I've done. And yeah, that's I guess everything really. Hopefully that was useful.
So Kate, I've got a couple of questions. When you entered the excellence in sports experience, did you spend time listing all the equipment that you had? Like, oh, we've got 4 cross trainers, 5 rowing machines, you know, we've got weights of different sizes. I mean, just give us a flavour, because that to me is just like an equipment inventory list, isn't it?
No, we didn't do that. So for this last one, we talked around our COVID recovery. So we focused on 3 particular things that we'd done because we had obviously quite bad closures for on and off for 12 months. 3 things that we did to bring students back into the centres and make sure they felt confident to come back in. So that was our online health and wellbeing home, which was like a virtual delivery, a lot of safety and things that we brought back into the centre, and then a rebrand of our kind of entry-level sports programme so that students knew what it was and came in. We did go into some numerical detail, but only relevant to those things and kind of what had been asked for. So no, not really an inventory, but definitely there was definitely a few numbers thrown in. I mean, maybe too many.
Yeah, so you're telling a story rather than just describing your campus facility, and I think that it doesn't matter whether it's sport or catering. You got to tell that story, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, we know it inside out, but we just wanted to make sure that people that didn't know anything about us could wade through it, I suppose, without difficulty.
Jane's raised her hand.
I think that's really important, Kate, because you know when you go to interviews at the universities, when I first started in HE, people used to say to me, "Don't assume somebody knows something about you just because you've been here for a year." So you've got to get it. You've got to bring it out in the interview, otherwise you can't get any points for it. And we do take a lot for granted when we write, you know, when we write stuff. So make sure in your narrative that you're not making any assumptions that people know that, oh yeah, well, that you did, they'll know we've done that. Well, they don't, because if it's not written down, they don't know you did that. So I think it is important to document actually what you're doing and not just brush over things that you think are just straightforward, because they're not straightforward to everybody.
No.
Yeah.
Have we got some questions for Kate? I'm sure there's other people online who've got some questions for Kate. Have we got the other sports people online? Is Sean there from Sports Development Manager? Yes, Sean's got his hand up. Excellent.
Hi, Sean.
Hi, Katie. Thanks for that. I suppose just a really kind of simple question was, how long did the application actually take? Just from you said that you were kind of the lead bid writer as such. When did you start working on it? Because I gather the submission dates were really similar to what they are now from last year.
In terms of when we started working on it, it was probably it was 3 to 4 weeks, because it was a case of we had to go to the senior team. What would you like to put in? Who's going to lead it? And then I had to collate all the information. So the lead time was a bit longer, because then people need to make sure they pull off the things I want. In terms of writing it, I guess I'm quite lucky. There's a lot of award submissions that come up at the same time, and it's something I've been doing for a long time. So I think I probably can write them fairly quickly, but still probably 2 to 3 hours, and then maybe like another half an hour of going back and changing it after someone's fed back. But we already have a lot of the stuff to hand. But yeah, I guess that's just a personal thing.
I was just going to say as well, I think it's good to have a longer timeline if you can do, so you've got time to sleep on it a little bit and go back to it and make those tweaks, because you know, I remember writing them and then a few days later going back to it and thinking, you know, that sounds a bit cringy, or you know, and you'd make those edits once you've had time to reflect. So
our director of sport proofreads them all as well. So he's always got some things to add, but again, he's very experienced, so you know, he'll say, oh, you know, I think you should mention this, or you've forgotten that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read them all as well, verbatim. But one of the things that I think, so it's a bit like I've worked in sales for many years, and I used to get people who didn't know anything about what I was trying to sell to read it, because there's no assumptions at all to make. So if you're talking about a sports initiative, get somebody to read it who's not from sport, and see if what you've done has actually come across to somebody who's not already in sport, because they'll make the same assumptions as you. So it's quite useful, I think, just to get someone who's got no idea about what you're doing or little, and say, have a read of that and tell me does it come across well? Do you understand what we're trying to get across? Does it sound successful? And they can obviously often give you really good tips.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, we're keeping exactly the time schedule here, is how these awards are judged. Now, speaking with some experience of being on some other awards panels, I can tell you that the CUBO Awards have got the best organised system that I've come across, because if you're selected as a judge, you independently on your own have got to make a judgment call and allocate scores, and that's not always the case on other awards, where it tends to be a committee meeting, and the person with the loudest voice often pushes the submission they like the best to the top of the pile. So CUBO have really invested in a what I think is quite a sophisticated piece of judging portal, and we do it without being influenced by others, and we submit our scores, and there are a number of judges for each of the categories. And in the case of 2 awards, that's the Campus Experience of the Year and Creativity in Catering and Retail, the top 3 entries actually get a site visit to help make the final decision. Now, I'm going to ask Jade if you'd like to add some value to what I've said in terms of judging, but there's no smoozing going on behind the scenes. That's what I wanted to say. This is really done with integrity and under strict criteria. Jane.
Yeah, it is, and I judged them for the first time last year, and I've got some categories that had so many entries. I thought, oh my god. Anyway, so you get an email via Sarah Clayton, and she gives you the entries for a particular for a particular entry, and then you go through verbatim on your own at home or wherever you are and mark. There's a criteria set.
Yep.
I can't remember what the criteria is off the top of my head, but I think they're slightly different to for each category, but all of them will say things. Have they demonstrated it's been successful? Have they demonstrated there was a need? And those things we said earlier are all really important. Why has it improved the student experience? How do I know that? How's it impacted the community, if it's something linked to the community? So they'll be looking for things that are all related to feedback from other people in terms of what you've done, why you've done it, and how it has or hasn't been successful. You all then mark those, and they all get sent through the digital portal. And if there are any real anomalies, Sarah will look at that. So if I've scored someone 5 and someone else, if the markings are out of 20 and someone else has scored 19, she may well come back to me and say, why did you feel that it deserved that lower score? Or that equally, why did it deserve? Because everyone else has said it was a 5 and you said it was a 19. So there's a moderation in there by somebody who hasn't been involved in the judging at all. And so that's another step that's in place in terms of making sure it's fair. But it is very fair. But I mean, don't want to keep repeating myself, but I can implore you that they can be very boring. So jazz them up, make them sound exciting, tell us why you've done it, and tell us the great results. I remember reading Kate's submission, and she's not from one of the massive institutions with an enormous sports department, but whatever she wrote in it, I can't remember now. Obviously, it was good. And so it doesn't really matter what size of the institution is behind you. If you've demonstrated what you've done, why you've done it, how you've done it, and how fabulous it's been, it matters not what institution you're from. And you know, we are all looking for innovation, aren't we?
Yep.
You know, so to as an example, someone last year had talked all about the technology since COVID, but one of the things they didn't do was say why we needed it. Why did you invest in all that technology? Because I'm not sure we've identified there was a need for it in the first place. So that, again, I guess that goes back to what I said earlier, doesn't it? And I don't know who's won as a judge until the night. So everyone's saying to me, you must know. Well, I don't, because they don't tell us. So the areas that I marked, I had no clue who'd won until it was up on the screen. So there is no sort of indiscretion behind the scenes. You absolutely don't know. You're not allowed to talk to the other judges about your marking, and nobody did. And so it's very well marked and very well controlled by Sarah and Jan, is what I would say.
Yeah, so I think you can see the scrutiny is there, the credibility is there of the judging process, and that results in the right winners. Any questions for Jane on the judging? Sean?
Yeah, hi Jane. Just another one. You were just talking about how we kind of showcase that innovation. I might have missed it when David was talking about the visual and how many photographs we can use with submission. But are you allowed to, have a video of some sort that can accompany the submission to kind of showcase some of the stuff that we're doing? Because we've been quite judicious in making sure we are capturing the project that we might submit in March.
David, I can't answer that question. Can you? And if not, Sean, we'll come back to you.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll come back to you on that.
I can just jump in there. We aren't able to take videos on the portal. Sorry, just sat there with my camera off. We aren't able to take video on the portal, unfortunately. So it's something we aren't able to do. We would, if you have got video footage, if you were successful and you were shortlisted, by all means send the links over, because we can include that with any subsequent case studies that we use and display to members afterwards. But as part of the submission process, unfortunately, is not compatible with the software.
My second question to that was, we do have a Flickr account where we kind of have been collating all of our stuff. So if we could link that through, that would be fine then, from what you're suggesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, Sarah.
Hiya.
Well, what I'll do next, I'll share a couple of slides which I've pulled together, and then we'll see if we've got some questions before we wrap up. So I'm just going to make this work, I hope.
I've got myself all wound up now. So the next email I'm sending when I get off this call is to my team about what we're applying for.
So hopefully, if someone could just tell me whether the slides are showing now. Can you see slides?
Yeah.
Yeah. We picked a slide with James on the front row there. So I do like this photograph, because this has got all the award winners up on stage at the 2019 awards event in Swansea. And what I've done, I've put together some top tips. So some of these we've already discussed about. So don't be on the last minute. I think sometimes people realize it's the closing date and start to actually pull their submission together on the closing date. So you really do need to plan ahead and prepare. And I would suggest that you do get other people to read the submission, as people have said. And it's great to hear that the most senior person in institutions is in fact reading the submission before it goes. I always say, stick it in the drawer, go home, come back the following day and have another read, and you're bound to change some of the content. Do use the word count fully. As I've said earlier, entries for 8 of the categories are 600 words, a 100-word summary followed by 500 words of detail. But the campus experience of the year can be up to 1,000 words. Make good use of the images, but we're going to call them photographs, of which you can submit free, which does then allow you to add charts, pie graphs, infographics as well. I've got another slide. Make sure that you stand out amongst the crowd. So please do thoroughly evaluate your entry. Keep it results based. Sort of improvements in guest satisfaction, customer satisfaction, student satisfaction. Add some colour. I've already mentioned charts and infographics, and someone else has already said this. Quotes. Stick in some quotes from students and customers. They often tell the story better than we can tell it. Explain why it's worthy of a CUBO award, and there's no harm in getting your story under the spotlight. Don't say you're submitting it for the CUBO awards, but there's no reason why you can't be promoting yourselves on LinkedIn or Twitter with some of the great initiatives that you're doing. And always start your awards entry with impact and have a short introduction and get straight to the point, really, the meat of the matter, which is why you stand out from the crowd. And hopefully you'll be on stage cheering like this crowd in Glasgow at the awards dinner on the 6th of July. But better still, come for the whole conference, which starts on the 5th of July and depart after breakfast on Friday the 7th. So I'll stop sharing that and I'll join you back in the room, I hope now. Yeah, I am back in the room. So we've got an opportunity now for some general questions from people. So
can I ask a question?
Yeah.
The question I'd ask of anyone on the call really
an email with a lady at Dudbrek.
Has this call been useful? Because it was a roundtable that we added to our normal roundtables, because I thought it would be quite well. A few of us thought it would be quite useful. So it would be great to get that feedback, because if it is useful, then we'll do it again. You're on mute, Lisa.
Yeah,
that's all right.
Yeah, it's definitely useful for me. We've never entered these awards before, so and apart from the National Student Housing Survey, so it's all new, so it's all good. It's all good information. And can I just ask, because I had my hand raised, sort of sneaky.
Yeah.
Can I just clarify? So with the photos and the infographics, so the infographics part of the word count for the text?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that will come off your word count. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And similarly, if you had a bar chart graph, the words you're putting under each bar pillar, as I call it, on the chart, that'd be part of your word count. But you can tell a big story though with a pie chart or a bar graph sometimes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Someone else? Oh no.
No. Okay. So Sarah, next steps. I think.
Sorry, David. Sean's just put his hand up.
Sean, please.
Sorry, it was only a really quick one. I think Jane, it was you that mentioned that you get a lot of entries for these categories. I just wondered if you had a kind of ballpark figure about how many people actually do enter these 9 categories and how many people would be up against.
It's different every year, and it's different for every entry. So I don't think there's always more entries for one particular category than the other. But some of them entries only had six people last year. And I think maybe the large. I'm not giving anything away, am I, Sarah?
No.
I think that one of the biggest ones I had was 24. So anything from 6 to 24 really. But I think that the Residence Life programme is always a big one, because it's very topical. But it might not be this year. There might be other things that are more topical in universities, or innovation and student experience. So, but it doesn't matter how many, because there's only a few you're going to get shortlisted, and then one's going to win. So it doesn't matter if there's 126. If you're the winner, you're the winner.
Yeah, but you've got to be in it to win it.
Got to be in it to win it.
Yeah.
And then one really final one. Sorry. You've obviously given us loads of tips of stuff that we should be doing in the application. Is there any kind of big no-nos or things where you really shouldn't do that? I don't know, any kind of common mistakes that we need to be aware of?
I think that things that are all a bit old hat now, if I'm reading something, that you know, loads of HE institutions are already doing. It's like, is that really innovative? Is that really exciting? So I can't think of an example. Can you think of one, James? But I mean, we all do
barista coffee. Oh, we've introduced barista coffee in our catering operation. Oh yeah, a lot of, nearly every university's introduced barista style coffee. Yeah, that'd be one for me.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, you just think, I mean, whatever it is that you're thinking about entering, you're obviously really proud of it, and I suspect that is relatively trailblazing. So, you know, go with your gut on that. And if you look around at other universities, and as David says, everyone's got barista coffee now. It's not hardly an initiative, or it's hardly new. You know, initially Res Life was relatively new, wasn't it? So, you know, just to have a Res Life program was an initiative, but it's not anymore. You've got to be doing something in Res Life that's slightly different, or you've turned the corner. I think some of the entries in Res Life last year were about how they adapted Res Life through COVID. So there was a total, you know, a shift on the entry, because it was how they kept their Res Life going through COVID, which was really interesting. So yeah, the categories, some of the categories have been around for a while, but within the categories, there's lots you can do with them.
Brilliant, thank you.
Any more questions? Well, I'd like to thank our speakers today, Jane, James and Kate. Thank you so much. And thank you, Sarah, for pulling all this together and also adding some clarity on some areas like videos. It's been a worthwhile exercise, and I hope you've all got something out of it. So shall we wrap up there?
Yeah, good luck.
Okay, good luck, everyone. Yeah, cheerio.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.